and he creates this sort of double vacuum effect in midfield where he's not only sucking Arsenal out of it, he then runs into that big black hole that he's left in the middle.
The ability of these Premier League players to absorb all this information and then execute it.
They created like this zigzag shape.
Reece frightening, you're burning up the quarter mile.
Yeah, I mean, he was... I'm not singing.
Dean,
come on. No. This is
Right,
like Friday night karaoke, come on.
Chelsea came away from Stamford Bridge on Sunday feeling like winners, despite the fact they dropped behind Manchester City to third place in the league and only drew 1-1 at home to league leaders Arsenal. They did, of course, have 10 men for the majority of the game after Moises Caicedo's red card. And the Gunners, of course, conceded 2 points in the title race to City. But you get the sense that Mikel Arteta didn't think it was too much of a bad result after all. That is Sun Sports tactical guru Dean Scoggins. I'm Will Pugh. This is Tactics Exposed. And Dino, as always, not much more of a hate watch for you this game. You have got 5 tactical points that fans may or may not have noticed from Stamford Bridge Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it was almost annoying how good they both were tactically for me as the Spurs fan trying to pick this apart. But as a purist, what a game to watch. But number one, we go straight in. One player, right? Reece frightening. Reece James was unbelievable in this game and we'll show why. Number two, Enzo's blueprint. That's Enzo Maresca's blueprint. He's gone from extreme man-to-man in one half to zonal in the second half. We'll pick through that. And number three, Arteta's smart work. The return of Odegaard and the return to Arsenal's shape was really important in the second half. Number four, buck your ideas up. It was Cucurella v Saka and Saka just about gets the edge with the assist. We'll go through that battle. And number five, mix it up. Mikel Merino again.
Absolutely, Dino. Mikel Merino on that point, 100k plus views on the Team Talk episode on Thursday. Thank you to everyone who watched that. We hope you've returned for this show as well. Get stuck in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, of course.
It was a right good debate in those comments this week, wasn't it? It
exactly.
was Arsenal v Chelsea was almost as combative as the midfield in the comments this week.
Nice one, Dino. Right, before we crack on, Dean, Moises Caicedo, his red card, that tackle on Merino in the first half, 38 minutes it was that he got sent off. Just quickly, before we go on, Chelsea did well, of course, to get a point after that. Red card for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely red card. I mean, Enzo Maresca makes a good point about the consistency of refereeing and the Bentancur foul at the Tottenham Stadium and other games where it's gone on. But in this game, look, I've just felt Caicedo was bubbling up. And the only mistake I feel Chelsea really made up to that point was just not calming Caicedo down. He had 2 ding-dongs with Merino, he had 1 with Zubimendi, he had 1 with Timber, and then just that little bit of over-exuberance means that in a game of that pace, that tackle comes. But Merino called it a horrible tackle. Horribly timed, I think it's the way to go. But yeah, great performance from Chelsea before and after that, to be fair.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job of highlighting Bentancur's tackle in that game against Tottenham, of course, which you called an orange card at the time, even though it was absolutely identical.
Well, you know.
Right, Dino, point number one, you've got me singing already. Go Reece frightening, you're burning up the quarter mile.
Yeah, I mean, he was... I'm not singing for
Dean,
Come on. No, like, you know, this is like Friday night karaoke, come on.
But yeah, Reece James.
Yeah, he was just, as I've said, frightening, unbelievably good. And the thing for me, the main point to make is that the tactical plan. We talked in the Team Talk show, as you say, about Rice against Caicedo in that midfield. And look, there were lots of comments about Rice being an 8 and Caicedo being a 6. The point is that the midfield domination is what it's all about. And Reece James, sorry, I kind of overlooked in that. But the tactical plan surrounded Reece James from Enzo Maresca. And it was similar to what they did at the Tottenham Stadium. We mentioned that game already. But what Reece James is doing is playing 3 positions in one. And it really was, in a game of this magnitude, in a game against Arsenal and their power and poise and presence that they have in there, for Reece James, as he gets the ball, as Chelsea get the ball in a defensive position, Reece James is playing right centre-back. So Fofana gets to go over to right-back. He's inside alongside Chalobah to give the goalkeeper more than one pass out. And Arsenal's press didn't really know what to do with that. You know, without Odegaard, we've praised Eze in recent weeks around his press and how he's managed that. But in this game, it was a bit mixed up from Arsenal. They didn't know whether to go with Reece James. They didn't know whether Declan Rice should go right out there with him. They found themselves themselves at times with Zubimendi or Timber in the striker position on the press. And Chelsea got out of there really well. And then not only that, as Reece James dropped into a centre-back position, as soon as the pass goes out, Reece James is interchanging with Malo Gusto to get himself into midfield. And he creates this sort of double vacuum effect in midfield where he's not only sucking Arsenal out of it, he then runs into that big black hole that he's left in the middle. So it was absolutely brilliant from Reece James in a tactical sense. You know, the physicality and all of that. Now he's been fit for like a year. Yeah. They're managing him brilliantly well. They'll probably rest him in midweek. They need to manage him because in the big games, he has to play.
So, Dino, is this a Maresca hat tip or is this a Reece James? A bit of both?
Yeah.
Because obviously we know Maresca's typically used Reece James as that inverted fullback to go into the box midfield. Any differences?
Yeah, well, we'll come on to Enzo Maresca out of possession management in a minute, which he's an absolute genius at. He always has been. One of the problems Chelsea have had is against the presses of the types of Arsenal and how they manipulate the ball up the field. And so absolute hat tip to both of them in the way they did that. As I say, move Reece James in to give you the extra man in the play out. And then as the ball goes past him or plays through him, he then moves into the midfield to give them that extra man in midfield as well. So 2 in 1. And then not only that, when they didn't have the ball, he's pressing up the field against Eze and the others as well. So all action, he was absolutely everywhere. His touches, his heat map were just absolutely insane. His dual success. There was one moment, wasn't there, where he picks the pocket of Calafiori in midfield, runs blindside of him, takes the ball, then beats him on the run, and then Calafiori fouls him and gets booked and needs to be taken off because he's running the tightrope. So, yeah, incredible performance, not just after Caicedo's red card, but James was the best player on the pitch from minute 1.
Just talk to me then, Dino, about how Arsenal managed him or perhaps didn't manage him and what they could or should have done instead.
Yeah, they didn't manage him. And I think Arsenal normally press in that 4-4-2 shape. And they got confused by that. And it ended up that Martinelli often was pressing off the left to the goalkeeper, which meant Chelsea played a bounce pass around him. Sometimes Eze went with Merino or Rice into a press, which was like too many people on the centre-backs and goalkeeper. And to be fair to Sanchez, there's been a lot of question marks over him, but his decision-making in this game was really good. If the pass to James or Fofana was on, he gave it. And if he didn't, he went long, and Chelsea and Arsenal battled for the second ball. But yeah, Arsenal didn't quite get it right. It was neither one thing or the other. Whereas Chelsea, when Raya had the ball at the beginning of the game, said, we're going man v man, we're not going to press the goalkeeper. We'll let Raya have lots of touches, passing and playing, but Arsenal got sort of stuck halfway in between the two things. And look, it's still a close game and a battle in midfield, but they didn't quite get that Reece James management right with the press, Arsenal.
Yeah, James, absolutely phenomenal. Point number 2, Dino, Enzo Maresca's blueprint. Quite a bit of a significant switch up in the middle of this game. Explain to us.
Yeah, one thing that I always, sort of think that shows these elite managers apart from the Thomas Franks of this world is that sorry.
I got some receipts on that one. I got some receipts. Go on.
Is that in the game they are able to notice a problem and make the change. And they both did this. We'll come on to Arteta in a moment, but Maresca first, because obviously he had to adapt to the red card. There was 2 or 3 minutes after the red card where he moves Enzo Fernandez back into essentially Caicedo's position and says, right, just sit there for a minute and let's gather ourselves, which is good in itself, right? Just good, manage. And then he gets to half time and he just switches it up. So in the first half, I've called it extreme man-to-man, is because basically what they're saying is Raya can have it, Chelsea will pick everybody up. And because we know about Arsenal's interchanges, you have to stay with your man as much as possible. So Gusto would go in with Calafiori when he went into midfield. And then when Timber goes up, Pedro Neto comes back. So Chelsea were very, very disciplined in following their players around. If Reece James and Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez have picked a player up in midfield, they're not passing him on as the ball gets passed around. They're following their men across midfield to chase them.
Is that kind of a Newcastle approach?
Yeah, very much so. And that's why it created that big space in midfield. And then when the space was there, Reece James then won everything afterwards.
And I think we did that. It was Newcastle against Liverpool.
It was,
I remember doing a very similar thing and you explaining doing the exact same thing, basically. And Liverpool were the sort of the victims of that, weren't they? Obviously, they sort
absolutely
of
that. And Newcastle do that because they've got such a mobile and combative midfield in duels. And this is what Chelsea did. So they've got that midfield to be able to do that. So that was how they set up, and it was being very successful until Caicedo's red card. And then when you get the red, so he gets them in at half-time, and he completely flicks that to go zonal. And so basically, you know that you're going to have to be sort of 4-4-1 a lot of the times out of possession because you've got a less man, or 4-5 without the striker. And so the even cleverer bit about this was the wingers did different things. So when it goes over to the left-hand side of Chelsea, Garnacho is playing like a second left back, okay? And he goes outside of Cucurella to mark the overlapping Timber, because that's what Timber does. Miles Lewis-Skelly is now playing as the Arsenal left back. We know he wants to invert. So when the ball comes over to the Chelsea right and the Arsenal left, then that means that Neto is not going to be the right back. He goes inside his right back, Gusto, so that they're picking up their men again. And what they did is they created like this zigzag shape. And when you're playing against that, if you imagine we're in a line, the space between us is quite wide for a pass to go through. If it's slightly zigzag shaped and you're slightly set the other way, that space to pass the ball through is much smaller. So Chelsea's discipline to do that mid-game and go from a man v man to a zonal was absolutely fantastic, and just shows how well drilled they are on the halfway on the training ground.
Yeah, what's the most impressive bit of that to you? The players, because this is the bit, doing this show with you every single week, twice a week, Team Talk Thursdays, Tactics Exposed Mondays. The bit I find the most impressive about it, which I think lots of football fans don't always appreciate, even those like me and you who watch games regularly in the flesh live in the stadium, is the players' abilities. It's credit to you. You make it sound quite simple when we do it in the studio, and we obviously that's the whole point of the show, right? But the bit that's never lost on me is the ability of these Premier League players to absorb all this information and then execute it.
Exactly. And that's
like
so hard at half-time to be able to change that around. For the last couple of days on the training ground before the game, they would have been going, right, we are man v man. Yep. And that, so they'd have had the players who weren't in the starting 11 plus, a load of the under-19s or 23s in a shape where they're going, right, we're just going to chase and we're just going to go man v man and then see where we end up as a shape. And Maresca would have worked on that as the week goes on. And then at half-time to go, right, 10 men now, different plan, for the players to then to be able to go, okay, I'm not chasing him now, I'm sitting in a zone and I'm passing him on. So yeah, as you say, quite simple to understand, to execute, top class.
Is he just relying on like tactical muscle memory there?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah, because they will have done that. They will prepare for if they go down to 10 or even 9, and they'll also prepare for a scenario where the other team goes down to 10. And in that sense, you don't really want to go man v man again if they go down to 10, because then you sort of say you've got one man sort of free. What's he doing in the defensive line? So yeah, it was really, really good, and yeah, muscle memory is a good way of putting it.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Dino. You can have that one for free if you like. Mikel Arteta and his smart work. Here's another man, Dino, was forced to change things up, shake things up during the game. Lots of talk on the TV afterwards about how difficult it is from some of the ex-pros. Daniel Sturridge saying it's not as easy as people think playing against 10 men, sometimes more difficult. Chelsea certainly made it tricky for Arsenal. But Mikel Arteta, in your opinion, although there's some disappointment among Arsenal fans this morning, actually did a pretty good job in reacting.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Chelsea have had a big week as well, but Arsenal had an absolutely mammoth week, didn't they? Tottenham in the North London derby, and then Bayern Munich, probably the hardest game in Europe at the moment, other than Arsenal or Chelsea probably, and then this at Stamford Bridge. So let's not overreact to Arsenal are still top of the pile, have still gone unbeaten since August and have gone to Stamford Bridge and not lost. And okay, there's the 10-man thing. And also, Arteta has to appreciate injuries. The two centre-backs in this were greatly missed. They were really greatly missed. And when the team sheet came out, the reaction in the office from all the Arsenal fans around, oh no, Saliba's out as well as Gabriel. And look, the two centre-backs did okay. Mosquera and Hincapié had a bit of a more difficult game than they'd had against Bayern or against Tottenham, the two of them. And it was, but it was on the ball that I felt that Arsenal missed their centre-backs, actually. Like, Chelsea won a lot of aerial duels. Actually, I think it was twice as many aerial duels as Arsenal did. But Arsenal win all the second balls, don't they? So it sort of balances itself out. But yeah, it was on the ball, and it was the calmness that they missed from Saliba, and then Gabriel's sort of incisive left foot pass into somebody on the left wing that they missed in this game. But yeah, so Arteta had to change it. And as I said in the Chelsea section, that Chelsea went sort of man v man. And in months gone past, we've been quite critical about sort of how rigid Arsenal are in their setup. And in the recent weeks, we've been full of praise about how fluid they've been and their interchanges. And in this game, they were almost, certainly up until Arteta makes the change, they're too fluid. There's too many movements.
Just quickly, Dino, at what point are we talking about this change?
It was after they started better in the second half. So he's got them in as well, like Maresca, and said, look, there's too much going on here. It's sort of lines all over the place. It was almost like a game of Kaplunk. There's too many lines going. When I looked at the pass map, I was like, whoa, what's going on? And the movement map, it's just too much and not enough structure. Chelsea's looks like a formation. Arsenal's doesn't. It's very, very chaos. Sort of, chaos is the right word. And so what he wanted then is, let's go back to organised chaos after it. So at half-time, he makes the change. But then the key moment really is when Odegaard comes on with Madueke. And then after that, when Gyökeres comes on and Merino drops back into midfield. And what that happens is Rice goes back as the 6. And then you have Merino and Odegaard as the 2-8s. And then you've got your wingers and your fullbacks. And straight away, you've got Rice in the middle and then the 2 sets of 3 either side, which means that they are back in there, and it was almost like, spinning wheels at the beginning where they didn't know what was going on. But they go back into that spinning plates type thing out wide where they're much more, there's still movement, but there's interchange between 3 players on each side. And those 3 players aren't going like that and spinning across each other and it all becoming confused.
Well, we spoke before on Tactics Exposed. It sounds like those triangles that managers set up, right?
Exactly, yeah. It really is those triangles. And obviously there's movement because you've got different players on different sides. You've got Timber who prefers the overlap and you've got Mars Lewis-Skelly who prefers the underlap. But on those 2 sides of the field, those 2 triangles are then set. So you're working as a 3, not working as a confused 6. And so it was much better, and it was like he sort of reset their shape, Arteta, and said play in those shapes, not all over the place. And that's when the midfield became more under control, if you like, and because Declan Rice didn't have his galloping great game, but when they reset their shape, and actually Zubimendi went off, and I thought Zubimendi, it was probably his worst game in an Arsenal shirt so far. He's allowed a bad day, by the way. But Declan Rice went in there and was the solid factor in the middle and allowed the others to play.
Yeah, absolutely great stuff, Dino. Very good impression, by the way, of the Arsenal fans in the office. I can picture a few of them.
Yeah. You can almost hear them still as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'll be a bit quieter this week, though, won't they? No doubt.
I doubt it.
Buck your ideas up. Bukayo Saka versus Marc Cucurella was kind of the secondary battle pitched in this one. Declan Rice v Caicedo, obviously the predominant one. But then from the off, Cucurella made us absolutely certain that he was well up for that battle.
Yeah, he absolutely got me out of my seat first in the game. It was one of those ones where you saw him coming and it was like the ball's going into Saka and I think it's from Timber and whoa, here comes Cucurella and it's like bang. Yeah. I thought it was incredibly brave from Enzo Maresca not to take Cucurella off because he was literally after about 20 minutes 1 foul away from a red, and the way he managed the game after that was absolutely superb. But then Bukayo Saka probably edges it in getting the assist, and I'll explain how he did that in a minute. But first of all, as I explained in the Team Talk show, that Cucurella gets Saka into these positions that Saka doesn't really want to be. He gets him isolated away from his Arsenal teammates, and then Chelsea get a man back for a 2v1. He gets him going backwards towards his own goal with Cucurella all over him like a rash and going the way. And what Saka is thinking is, I'm going to get kicked here. And so that, creates uncertainty. So Cucurella did that. And then what Saka did after half-time, and it plays into the fact of what we were just talking about of Arteta, of getting that structural shape right. Saka's then, they get higher up the field, Arsenal, in possession. Odegaard does that naturally. He gets them playing in the area outside of the penalty area, whereas before it was all too much fired in and then bounced back and forth. Odegaard gets them settled in a position there, which means Saka can then receive the ball inside the line of the penalty area. And then in the second half, what he does, and especially for the goal, is he takes Cucurella into the box. And then in the box, Cucurella can't be like Cucurella is on the halfway line, all over him and smacking him hard. So Saka takes him into the box. Timber holds the width. Odegaard sat there, so they're working as that three. And then, of course, Bukayo Saka's unbelievable quality to shift that ball in for the cross for the goal.
Do you feel Chelsea having 10 men impacted this battle at all? Because I do feel Cucurella, like we've said already, was well up for it from the off, and you thought, I think he's got the upper hand here. There was that shift that you've mentioned. Do you think it was anything to do?
It was impacted by that because obviously he can't get another yellow and then be down to 9 because then it's curtains. But B, from a tactical perspective, which is I think what you're asking is that what it means is that when Arsenal recycle the ball, then they've got an extra man to be able to do that. So that's what they did much better, where Odegaard comes and gets the ball to feet. Rather than every time Saka gets the ball, it's a duel with Cucurella, who is one of the best 1v1 defenders, as I said, if not the best in the league. But Saka then gets the better of him because he's in that area to go and beat him in the box, and Cucurella can't lay a glove on him then. So yeah, it makes a difference when you've got an extra man, because Rice or Merino or Odegaard in that midfield position can come over and help. And then if it comes back to them, obviously a Chelsea player's got to come out, and then you can give it him back again in a bit more space. So, yeah, it definitely has an impact.
Anything Marc Cucurella could have done for the fantastic assist from Saka for Merino's goal?
It's hard, isn't it? Because Saka goes both ways, so it's so difficult. It's sort of hypercritical to say that Cucurella could have really, got a block on the cross. I'm not sure he can stop the brilliant skill, but it was relentless between the two of them. And, I would say, if in open play, Cucurella wins the battle, but then, of course, Saka provides the moment of quality that gets the equaliser. So it's difficult to say honours even when Saka provides the assist.
Absolutely. Right, Dino, point number 5. Mix it up. Point number 5 here, Mikel Merino, the magnet man, as we dubbed him in Thursday's Team Talk show. If you haven't already, go back and watch the Team Talk show after this, and you'll see how much stuff Dino got right about this game. But Mikel Merino, absolutely outstanding performance. Once again, he's all over the place and gets that all-important goal to get Arsenal the point.
Yeah, he's a remarkable player, isn't he?
Really?
It's like, I can't quite get... the tactical stuff is great. He fully understands when he's got to drop from being the 9 into sort of the 10-8 position.
Or the 6.
Yeah, all this, yeah. But, I mean, the number of times you looked at it and Zubimendi or Timber or Saka or, Martinelli are way, way further upfield than Merino, and he's the one with the rotations. And, yeah, look, there were too many rotations from Arsenal in that first half, which caused a bit of a problem. But still, he's the one receiving it to feet. So that's him in a tactical sense. But then he gets in the box and he turns into a striker. It's like in open play, I'm a 6, I'm an 8, I'm a 10. And then all of a sudden crosses the little white line of the edge of the penalty area. I'm a striker now. It's fantastic. It's, stars in their eyes. He goes through, tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be a number 9. And he goes, it's absolutely, that's an old reference.
Yeah, just a contemporary reference for all the kids.
Yeah, I'm in my 40s there, lads.
Matthew Kelly from 1996.
Google it, kids. Yeah. But yeah.
After the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. But Mikel Merino then, he goes into the box and then becomes a striker. And in the assist, which we've talked about from Bukayo Saka's brilliance before, he goes in and Fofana's at the front post and he makes the strikers run behind him, as he should, but then the instinct, he makes this sort of little hop backwards, and the space between him and Fofana goes from being 2 yards to 5 yards in an instant, and there's the header. And that's the sort of striker's instinct. I'm not sure you can teach that. That's one of that. You can show people videos, you can say this is what you're supposed to do. But then when Bukayo Saka, in the split second that Bukayo Saka comes back onto his left foot, Merino's not thinking run towards the goal. It's a bit like Eze with his hat-trick against Tottenham. It's, hang on, I'm going to go away from the goal slightly in order to score. And, I mean, that's, elite level.
It's funny, when you were showing me that this morning before the show, it's the sort of thing, I remember thinking, it's the sort of thing that when Haaland does that, which he does on the reg, everyone's going, he's absolutely amazing. That's the difference. But, just because it's Merino and you're used to seeing him in midfield most of the time, he sort of doesn't get the plaudits for it.
Absolutely, yeah. And, and that's the difference between, a draw and a title race, but, not being completely blown open because they're 2 yards apart. Fofana goes 2 yards one way, Merino goes 1 yard the other. Now they're 5 yards apart, and there's the goal.
Did you see anything, Dino, of the sort of magnet man trick, i.e., which was not dissimilar to what you described with Reece James, right? Being a vacuum, sucking players out and leaving that gap in the middle. We spoke about Merino doing that last week. Did you see as much of that as you thought?
I did, but as I say, I just think that Arsenal did too much. It seems strange to say too much movement around the edges, because that then meant there was this big hole in midfield where Reece James and Caicedo, before he was sent off, were winning that battle. And also in that photo there, you've got a guy called Enzo Fernandez, who I've done lots of shows on, so I don't want people diving in and saying he didn't mention Enzo again. But his ability to go and do a similar thing to Merino, where 1 minute you're joining the attack and being the box crasher, and the next minute you're back in being the one buzzing around the edges. And you know, they're just really, really high level footballers, and this game showed how adaptable these two teams can be. And I just hope that Chelsea, from a title race perspective, Chelsea maintain that momentum in these big games, because it could be really great when we go back to the Emirates the second half of the season.
I was very surprised, Dino, actually, not to see Enzo Fernandez in the running order for this show.
You know I love him, yeah.
Exactly, as of course do the Chelsea fans. Look, and we love you too, Chelsea, Arsenal fans, whoever it is watching this video. Thanks for all your support last week. We hope you've enjoyed this one. Make sure you like and comment on this video, and of course subscribe to the channel to make sure you never miss an episode of Tactics Exposed or Team Talk. Team Talk Thursdays, Tactics Exposed Mondays. We'll see you next time.